Hello everyone, welcome to our annual meeting of Journal of International Students.
We'll have a chance to have a conversation with some of our authors and live out this critical conversation ethos that we're hoping to build on in 2021 and beyond.
Thank you, Dr. Glass, for all the highlights, the major highlights that we have been doing here at the Star Scholars and with the Journal of International Students, along with the other editors in the Open Journals in Education. Okay, so now next I would like to welcome our special guest and also special colleagues who has been in every single project from day one. Dr. Rajika Bhandari is an international higher education expert and a scholar practitioner over 25 years of executive and management experience in student mobility research and data-driven insights, mentoring, evaluation, and impact of the studies of international education programs. She's the author of a recent must-read book, America Calling, and in a moment she will talk about her book and share her journey. Dr. Bhandari is advisory board member of the Journal of International Students and the Star Scholars Network. Please join me in welcoming our own colleague and expert, Dr. Bhandari.
Thank you so much, Krishna. Delighted to be here. I just jumped off the other meeting that was sort of the official launch of my book. So yes, it comes out today, and thank you so much to you all for inviting me to join you. I guess I'll just say a few things about it and try and distill them into a couple of minutes. The first thing I'll say is that this book is very different from anything I've ever written, and that many of you might know from my other body of work, which is of course been research-based and more academic. But what many of you may not know is that at heart I'm a writer, a different kind of writer, and this is actually my second nonfiction book. So the book is based both on my journey as an international student from India to the US, but is also what I would describe as a call to action for the US to keep its doors open to international students and immigrants from around the world. And so it also tackles larger policy issues, social issues in the US around international students, around immigrants, a lot of which which have endured for many years. And so that's the part that I shared my journey as well, but really came to a head over the past 4 or 5 years, where we saw an increasingly hostile environment towards, frankly, anybody who sort of constituted the other or the outsider in the US. And of course, that also included international students. So it's both that very personal story where through my journey, but also through that of others, I've interviewed several people for the book, including current international students, including ambassadors who talk about the role of education in US soft power and diplomacy, including people who came to the US as international students, were doing brilliant work, who wanted to stay but left and took their talents to another country and competing countries like Australia and others because of all the immigration challenges that they faced. So it's a very honest book. It's a very candid book. It's a book that I've wanted to write for many years, and I felt now is the moment to do so. I hope you all will read it, of course, and engage with it. And I hope, of course, that it will resonate with many of us for whom this has indeed been the pathway in the US. And Krishna, I'm looking at you, and I think this has been your pathway. It's been Uttam's pathway, and really been the story of many of us. So today is the publication date, and so especially delighted to be with you. That's the book. You see the cover right there. And I just got off an event where really it was an emotional experience hearing from many US university leaders who themselves were former international students, and how the book is resonating with them. So I will stop there and take any feedback or thoughts that you have. The ordering information is on the slide in front of you. I'm also going to put my website in the chat here. So yeah, that's the book.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. Bhandari. Maybe we can take one or two quick questions before we introduce our next speaker. Okay, you can use chat room or you can unmute your microphone. Yes, this story, this particular fiction, represent the story of any one of us, our personal struggle and achievement, and also, creating a space for ourselves and for others. Thank you, Dr. Bhandari, and congratulations on your new book. And also, thank you for your outstanding contribution to the field as an advisor, as a scholar, authors, and the mentors for all of us.
Prashanti, I see you have a question.
Yeah, I see a question.
Would you like to ask a quick question? Prashanti, you can unmute and ask your question to Dr. Bhandari.
Thank you, Dr. Kless. Good morning, Dr. Bhandari. Congratulations on the book. I was just wondering if you conducted a qualitative study to write the book, or are they the stories of the students?
So I interviewed many individuals. I did not conduct a survey or a formal study. I think I've done a lot of that for my previous work. But this builds off of the narratives, of course, my own personal experience with certain key individuals I spoke with. But what I have drawn upon in the book, and if you read it, you'll see this, and this is sort of my leaning as a social scientist and researcher. The book and the assertions that I make in the book is supported by, I will say, a ton of research and data that comes out of my own work in the field, the work of others. And in fact, the book has a very detailed reading list and bibliography included as well in the book, but it is not deliberately not an academic book. It's intended for a mainstream audience to whom I wanted to bring an understanding of international students and immigrants. So no, I did not conduct an actual survey.
Oh, thank you. So am I assuming it right that you didn't have to take any IRB approval or go ahead? Okay.
No IRB approval, but I will tell you this, that the mainstream publishing world is not an easy one to navigate. So where an IRB approval may have taken some months, let me just say it took 4 or 5 years to get this book to see the light of day. So that was its own kind of, I say this jokingly, its own kind of IRB process times 10. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. And congratulations again. It sounds really interesting. I look forward to reading it. Thank you.
Thank you, Prashanti.
Thanks.
Great. And the book is available on Amazon from the Publisher House and several other venues, including Barnes & Nobles. Please feel free to reach out. And the one thing I really appreciate about the publisher is the price is very affordable, unlike any books we publish from commercial publishing house. So this is the positive side about purchasing the book and reading it. That's great. And if there is another burning question, we can take quickly. Otherwise, we can move to the next item on the agenda.
May I take this last one, please?
Please, sure.
I'll make it short because I think it is such an important question. Actually, I think for many people many people do different types of writing beyond the academic writing. So I think it's a very good question on switching genres. And I will say it is very difficult going between those two, the academic research-driven style to a more mainstream style. But what I'll also say is that with nonfiction, a lot of what you do in the academic realm is very transferable. Organizing information, developing outlines, researching, fact-checking. So I think all of those things do transfer over. But yes, it is not easy to write in those two different styles.
Great. Looks like we have one more question here. Dr. Bhandari.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. It's my first meeting, and I'm really glad and happy to be here. Congratulations to you all. And I just wanted to ask to Dr. Bhandari, of course. She said that the book she wrote about her experience as being an international student was not actually based, it was actually based on a lot of interviews to, I guess, international students, or also stuff, or actually people that you encountered during your staying in the US. So I was just interested in what kind of experiences, what kind of people actually influenced the most your writing process, actually, if I may ask you. Thank you very much, and nice to meet you all right now. I'm very excited to get to know for the first time this amazing, outstanding reality. Thank you very much.
Well, so I think there are two parts to your question. In terms of who influenced the writing process, what I was tackling was very difficult because I was trying to tell a very personal story, yet there's a lot of analysis, as I've shared earlier, in the book. So it was not easy to think about how do I marry these two together to present it in a compelling narrative where you've got a very personal story, but you're also trying to lay bare and reveal certain larger policy and social issues. So I spent a lot of time looking at other similar books that had been written, again, for mainstream audiences. And in fact, in just the past few years, we've seen a real rise in those sorts of books, which are telling a personal story, but really revealing larger issues. So that was part of the process, and just learning from what other writers have done. In terms of my interviews, I think some of the most compelling, so even with students, I've spoken with a range of students, Chinese students, some who are in the US, some who went back, students from Africa. I tracked down and spoke with a woman whose father, along with JF Kennedy, helped launch a scholarship program for African students in the 1960s called the African Airlift, and which is the same time that the senior Obama came to the US as a part of that group of African students. So there was talking to people who knew the history of how the US has related to the rest of the world through its universities, and telling the current day story also. And I'll just end by saying that I think one of the most powerful interviews that was very moving for me was with Ambassador Richard Verma, who was the last ambassador to serve under President Obama as an ambassador to India. And what was very special about him was that he was the first person of Indian American origin to go back to India as an ambassador. And his story was particularly compelling because his father came to the US as an international student. I think it was in the 1970s. So just learning of that narrative of education and educational diplomacy in their family was very
Mas
Continue on.
Okay, Dr. Bhandari, I think you can continue.
No,
Or
I
are you
ended
done?
that. That was it.
Okay.
No, thank you, Laria. That was a great question. And that's what I wanted to end with, and sort of talking about who were some of the people who influenced my thinking in the book.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, because it's very fascinating to see actually how, as you said, as I can understand, correct me if I'm wrong, personal experiences at the end lead to get to know people, interview people with personal stories that at the end of the day are able to create a broader story, a bigger story. So that's very fascinating. I'm very inspired, and so thank you very much. Thank you. I'll definitely buy your book and I'll read it. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you, Rajika, and I really appreciate that wonderful presentation. Actually, it's a very nice way to illustrate, I think, to the individuals who've been with us. We've had about 200 people come and go throughout the session, but I hope the one thing that you would see is these are critical conversations. The conversation that we just had with Dr. Bhandari is a great example of the kinds of conversations we believe the journal can facilitate with every piece of research that we do, to bring authors closer to the readers and readers closer to the authors to help understand the stories that are behind the things that you might read on pieces of paper. But we can do this, and we have had so much interest in this meeting, but our team is large. You can visit our website. I do want to highlight a few people, and then we'll wrap up for the day as we say goodbye to Dr. Bhandari and say goodbye to all of you, our friends who've joined us here today. We do want to thank to the many people that make the journal possible. I want to thank our associate editors who, if you've been an author, you realize that our associate editors are the reason you get constructive, thoughtful feedback, regardless of the decision. That is their goal, is to always provide constructive feedback to help you advance as a scholar. And I want to thank them, as well as our assistant editor team. This is a way that new scholars can get involved in the journal and then eventually become associate editors, is to join a part of our assistant editor team. I'm very proud, if you look at our journal's website, we have assistant editors from across the world with all kinds of expertise. We have an amazing advisory board. Of course, Dr. Bhandari is one of those incredible advisory board members who's really been with us from the start. She's been an inspiration to the journal and so many people around the world, and we'd like to thank them. And we also like to thank our global partners, the Star Scholars Network, the World Council on Intercultural Competence that Dr. Darla Deardorff manages, as well as the Comparative and International Education Society Study Abroad and International SIG, that is the home of the Journal of International Students. Academically, we're associated with that SIG at the CIS. Dr. Bista also mentioned our wonderful sponsors. These are the reasons that all of our authors pay nothing at all to publish in the journal, in addition to the wonderful volunteers. The American Council on Education has recently become a sponsor, as well as Emerson College, the College of the Kenyans, and Old Dominion University.